Hey, what's up everybody? It's Jason. I hope you're doing well. Welcome back to the channel. Today, honestly, I couldn't be more excited to talk about what we're going to talk about. The teaser trailer for Disney's latest animated movie, Raya and the Last Dragon. So with this video, of course, we are going to talk about my opinions on the trailer and, just how I think the film is shaping up to be based on the contents of the trailer. But fair warning, for a majority of this video, I'm mostly going to be talking about what I believe to be the cultural impact of a movie like Raya and the Last Dragon. Because unless there's a movie I don't know about, this might be the first ever mainstream movie inspired by Southeast Asia. And here's why I think that's a big deal. A lot of people, when you ask them about Asia, even adults, right, they'll think about China, Japan, Korea, and the Southeast Asian countries don't really get a lot of attention, and they're really just not that well known in general. I mean, speaking personal experience, growing up Asian, and I should say more specifically growing up Thai, I've been told many times that my face is ethnically ambiguous. No lie, one time I went up to a McDonald's and the cashier started speaking Spanish to me, which was actually quite flattering. I guess I should also insert this little correction. I'm actually half Thai, half Chinese, but I was raised Thai, and if you grew up Asian, you might understand what that means. Basically, my mother is half Thai, half Chinese, and my father is half Thai, half Chinese. They didn't feel the need to tell me this until I was 21, 22. For reference, I'm 24 now, so I found out that bombshell about 3 years ago. And they both grew up in Thailand, though, and they just felt that I was Thai. There was no question about that. So technically, I'm half Thai, half Chinese, but I was mostly raised in a Thai house, not mostly, entirely raised in a Thai household around Thai culture. So anyways, growing up, a lot of people, and well, I mean, a lot of kids, once they find out that races and ethnicities exist and that you're not also white. I grew up in a very predominantly white neighborhood, white school system, and it's just a lot of times once they found out you were Asian and they learned about Asia, and of course, the kids, there's a certain amount of ignorance that you can definitely just let slide. But they would love to play a guessing game with your face and say, are you Chinese? Are you Japanese? Are you Korean? And they just had no earthly idea about Southeast Asian countries. And again, totally not their fault. I think it's the school system's fault, quite frankly. But Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, I think Vietnam actually has grown quite a bit in popularity, but that's besides the point. But the point is, for the most part, whenever people think about Asian countries, they think about those main three that I keep talking about over and over again. And for a long time, it just felt like there hasn't been a lot of representation for Southeast Asian countries. Like I said, I feel like a lot of people don't really know they exist, let alone that they have their own, God forbid, like cultures and people. And moreover, actually, while I'm talking about this, there's something else I want to get off my chest. A lot of people, even once they kind of learn about the different Asian countries, they have a very seemingly hard time distinguishing between the types of Asians that there are. And really the only reason I do this is to just kind of really drive into the ground the point that not all countries in Asia are the same. Every single country, whether it's an Eastern Asian country like China or Japan, each country in Asia and each country across the world has their own set of cultures and values and people. And just to continue to think that they can all be lumped up into one just melting pot of Asia, I think it's kind of wrong. Actually, there's technically one way that you can group all Asians together, and I will take this point to my grave. No Asian wears shoes inside their house. But the main point that I'm trying to make is that no matter the geographical boundaries that people put to kind of group people together and just categorize them as a whole, as funny as stereotypes can be, I think there has to be room left to be able to give every single country and every single culture their own breathing room to express who they are, how they feel, without lumping them into another culture that just sometimes clashes. Ideally, right? All of us in this world, it wouldn't matter that where I'm Asian or that guy is black or Spanish, none of that would matter. We would all be able to treat each other with respect and dignity just based on the merits of being a human being. So with all that said, I really can't express how cool I think it is that a movie like this, made by Disney, one of the biggest media companies in the world, acknowledges this very unique subset within Asian culture that comes from Southeast Asia. Okay, wow, so let's go ahead and talk about the actual trailer at this point. So Raya and the Last Dragon, to me, it's kind of like Moana in the sense that it's inspired from several different island cultures. Moana was. It wasn't one specific type of people. It takes place on the fictional island of Matanui. They just drew heavily from like Polynesian culture, for instance. It seems like the same thing in Raya and the Last Dragon. I'm going to point out some more specifics a little bit later in the video, just kind of where they drew different instruments, or where I think they drew different inspirations. I don't know what word I just said earlier, from Southeast Asia to animate and I guess represent in this film. But before we get into that stuff, the first thing I want to talk about is kind of my one and only concern for this film. Films like Moana and Frozen have been big non-Pixar Disney animated hits, but they've also been very formulaic. There's always you have your heroine, and then you have like this kind of like cute, adorable little sides character. In Frozen, it was Olaf. In Moana, it was that little chicken thing. And then from there, things kind of unfold into the classic Disney formula of, there's a very clear objective set from the beginning of the film. A majority of the film, they're trying to get to that objective, and then they finally do, but then they fail, and there's a little sad part. But then in the end, they try again, everything succeeds, and we're all good, and then credits roll. And that's really my only concern about this film so far, is kind of how formulaic it's looking to be. But I mean, at this point, if you go into a Disney animated movie, they're made for kids. Obviously, we as adults see them anyways, but they're made for kids. So the plot is going to be pretty straightforward, and it's something that I think you should just kind of have grown to expect already from these kinds of films. And of course, the other big thing with this film is all the influences it has from Southeast Asia. So at this point, let's go ahead and break down a couple of things that I noticed that look like they were drawn from or inspired by certain countries in Southeast Asia. The first thing I saw is that Raya, or at least I'm assuming that's Raya. It'd be very messed up if that wasn't Raya showing in this trailer the entire time. But the first thing she picks up are these, what I believe they're called eskrima sticks, which are used very popularly in Filipino martial arts. That seems to be her weapon of choice throughout this film. And then, of course, in various shots throughout this trailer, you see her wearing that kind of iconic, at this point, I think it's mostly been attributed to Vietnam, but you kind of see it throughout in Southeast Asian countries. This triangle hat, I think it's called a conical hat. I'm not completely sure. Those, like I said, are kind of popular throughout all of Asia. You'll see them a lot, especially on rice farmers that wear that to keep the sun out of their face. But I think in more recent years, it's really been attributed to Southeast Asian culture, especially Vietnam. And then we have what I thought, obviously, with a lot of bias, was the coolest part. In the trailer, she goes up to fight a villain, and I can't really confirm this, but this is just kind of what it looks like to me based off of probably, again, bias from my own culture. But the guy looks like he has a mask that's based off of almost, it's a creature in Thai mythology called a yak, I believe. And, well, actually, okay, I swear this wasn't planted there just for the video. This actually just sits in our apartment all the time. But this, I don't know if you can see it. This I actually got in Thailand maybe in 2013, 2014. This was, it's an image of yak. I've also seen in comments from the trailer, people are comparing it to a mask. The name of it is escaping me. A mask from Indonesia. It starts with an R, I believe. I'll put up a picture right here. To me, it looks a little bit more like a Thai yak, but could be completely wrong. And then the last thing I saw, and I promise this is the last thing, it looks like there was a lot of tribes gathering at one point. And this one I might actually need your guys' help with a little bit. I couldn't kind of distinguish, and maybe it's not based off of Southeast Asian culture, but some of them actually looked like the Thai people my mom has in her soap operas. They do a lot of soap operas with just like old-fashioned Thai garments, but then there's also a couple that look almost like they could be inspired by Polynesian cultures. So just what are your thoughts? Let me know below. All right, so that's gonna do it for this trailer reaction, I guess you could call it. Again, I'm just really stoked that they made this film, and I am very excited to see it in theaters come March 2021, I think is when it's going to release. But the last thing I'll say before I sign off is that because of the coronavirus, I think 2020 has been kind of a trying year for Asians and the Asian American community, especially because obviously the virus originated in China, and then you have some people, I'm not going to say names, who are calling it things like Kung Flu. And just in general, this didn't really get a lot of news coverage, but there are a lot of Asian American people and just Asians, maybe even in Canada and Australia, that were being harassed and even hurt because people just were attributing the virus to them, putting the blame on them. But the reason I bring any of this up in the first place, obviously, is not to leave a dark hole in your heart right before I leave you, but it's more so to point out the fact that despite everything that happened due to the virus and the discrimination and the acts of violence that were targeted at the Asian American community, with everything that I believe that this film stands for, whether it's, Asian pride, Southeast Asian pride, whatever, however you want to cut it up, right? It just feels like the Asian community has a win. All right, so that's going to do it for me, guys. I know that was a lot, but to wrap it up, again, really excited to see Raya and the Last Dragon, and I just Moreover, feel really privileged to have been able to make this kind of a video, so please, please, please let me know your thoughts below, either on the movie or anything that was said in this video. Any of your thoughts, whatever they may be, let me know below. And if you enjoy the content, please like or subscribe. It really helps out the channel. Until next time, stay safe, be kind. Thank you.